the pen's in my hand, ending unplanned, staring at the blank page before you.
Quarter 1 in Mr. Mercado's freshman honors English class was chaos. When Mr. Mercado first told us we needed 6 extra essays, 2 rewrites, and a narrative, everyone was overwhelmed. On my first narrative, I constantly reported the story instead of taking the reader into the story. But being first quarter, the nerves were high, and instead of taking risk, I was playing it safe. When it came time to start thinking about the end of the quarter, I had about 1 extra essay and 1 rewrite. I quickly learned my lesson on procrastination by having to write 6 essays that weekend. In the first quarter, I wrote about my favorite TV show, Big Brother. I wrote about cell phones, the effect of media in society. I wrote about the time we could not use water from the sink because of the E. coli. And I wrote another essay about the TV show Gossip Girl. I also wrote about Spirit Week. Looking back on these essays, they were all terrible. My deficiency for the quarter should have been writing in general, but luckily, Mr. Mercado was feeling generous. Now that quarter 1 has ended, you could call me a survivor. I made it through quarter 1, and now on to quarter 2. In quarter 2, I started to improve slightly. I wrote about homework, having your mom as your coach, leadership, and my cousin's battle with cancer, the impact of sports on a student, and another TV show. Things became more routine, and I knew what to expect. I planned out my time better, and I did not wait until last minute to write my essays. In the second quarter, I was still not where I wanted to be as a writer. That made me realize I needed to work a little harder. The expectations from first quarter were also higher. Quarter 2, I worked on vocabulary and word choice. I noticed my writing can sometimes be simple, and to make it better, I could choose better words. To expand on my vocabulary, I used vocabulary.com and researched on Purdue OWL. I made it. I was halfway there.
But I gotta keep trying, gotta keep my head held high.
Third quarter was by far the hardest quarter of the year. We were climbing the ladder. This is when we started our poetry unit and research paper. But luckily, the amount of work for that quarter's portfolio was cut in half. We only had to write 3 extra essays and 1 rewrite. This quarter I wrote an analytical piece about the Dead Poets Society. I wrote about school uniforms and an essay about pressure. The poetry unit was probably the biggest endeavor for me this year. I hate writing and reading poetry. Although I still do not consider myself a poet, I believe I improved from my first poem. The poem I felt was my turning point with my poetry was The Room of My Life. I was proud of the improvement I had made from my first poem. Next was the research paper. Many people hate writing research papers, but I seem to enjoy them more than creative writing. We choose to write about the effects of birth order. We research characteristics about the oldest child, the middle child, and the youngest. We also researched the effects of being an only child. I found it interesting and could easily relate to the traits of a middle child. Third quarter came to an end, and now we only had 1 quarter left.
It's our vacation. What time is it? Party time. That's right, say it loud. What time is it? The time of our lives. Anticipation. What time is it? Summertime. School's out. Scream and shout.
With the start of fourth quarter, summer is just around the corner. I had already finished my essays due to my lesson learned from the first quarter, and when it came time to work on this video, I only needed to put the finishing touches on my portfolio. The other day in class, we took the Shifty 50. Yeah, I didn't do so well, but I did improve a whole 44 points from the first time we took it. We also did speeches on progression and regression. I have definitely improved on public speaking since our first speech this year. We got back our research paper this quarter. We didn't do as well as we had hoped, so we did our corrections and we are now satisfied with our grade. Quarter 4. My last deficiency was choppy sentences. I often find comments like choppy or not flowy on my papers. I wrote 6 essays this quarter titled Story of a Girl, At Last, Bad Calls, The Trojan War, Mothers, and my speech on regression. I also rewrote my extra essay from quarter 1 and my narrative from quarter 1. I conquered vocabulary.com and finished with 202,000 points. But I didn't just earn the points, I learned new words that I will use in my future writing while doing so. Now that I have finished this video, summer is only an exam away. This year in English has been a long, hard journey, and to see it all come to an end is sad. Or maybe not so sad, seeing as we will all be enjoying the beautiful sunny weather in just a week. But I feel this year I have really grown as a writer, a reader, and as a person. I have taken some of my greatest weaknesses and turned them into strengths. Whether it be choppy sentences or MLA format, I improved in every category this year. I have discovered what I needed to work on and turned my deficiencies into efficiencies. This is what drove the growth in my writing. English 117 had many mixed emotions. There were days where the hour and 8 minutes seemed like eternity, and there were other days where you just wished you could have the class all day. There were days where you laughed at the whole time at Mr. Mercado's stories, and days where you were furiously writing from start to finish. But without it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And maybe the comments were harsh at times, but they were only for the better. Now, as I move forward to my next years in high school, what I learned in English 117 will not be lost. I will expand on my knowledge and keep sprouting as a writer, reader, and as a person.